It's a life fraught with difficulty. Even with the best care, things would have been tough for Meshach Kipchumba. Born in rural Kenya, where disability is considered a curse, he is literally lucky to be alive. If some of his relatives had their way, he would have been killed as an infant.
Akaniambia hapana, huyu mtoto anakupotezea muda.
I was chased from home. A friend took me in, but after 3 weeks, she asked me to put acid in my son's food. I refused to poison my child and left.
Ya betri, ya tochi.
Florence has struggled ever since, doing odd jobs to survive. But not enough to afford a wheelchair. She's not alone. Many women in rural Kenya say they are pressured to kill disabled children. No one knows how many of them give in. But infanticide has deep cultural roots. I'm trying to...
Now, according to research recently done by the Disability Rights International Group, 45%, 45, that's nearly 50% of mothers that they interviewed claim that, at least when they have a disabled child, family members try to pressure them into actually ending their kid's life. Oh, that is crazy. But am I surprised? No, I'm not. Because look, especially in the rural areas, disabled children, have it very, very hard. They struggle. And one of the reasons that came out of this research was, the idea that kids born with disability are a curse. Again, that did not surprise me. Look, we live on a continent, especially when you go into rural parts of the continent, where every little thing cannot be, normal. Everything is attributed to a supernatural. And especially, some people take a huge advantage of that situation. Look, in Ghana, there's this pastor called Angel Obedi. And this man admits, even though he is the one that had an affair with his junior pastor's wife, the child that came out because of the affair, he has cursed the child. That's why the child has a disability, because the mother of the child tried to disgrace him by talking about the affair that they've had. So with notions like this, it becomes very difficult to convince the general public that people can just be born with disability. So what happens is especially when people who live in rural areas have children with disability, then in order not to have the stigma, because they don't want their families to be known as the family with a cursed baby and stuff like that, their mothers, their grandmothers, their friends, their aunties, their sisters, all encourage them to end the child's life. I mean, one of the women that was being interviewed said she was told to actually feed the kid acid so that she can end the child's life. Now, how is that? Like, how can somebody go look at a baby's face, a baby that probably is less than 6 months or something like that, and tell the mother that has carried this kid for 9 months and gone through the trouble of labor to feed this child acid in order to get rid of the child, simply because the child suffers from one disability or the other. Now, granted, our societies are not really, capable, or the current conditions of our societies does not make it, conducive for people who suffers from one disability or the other to be part of it. Look, according to the UN stats, about 80% of people that suffers with disability in Africa do not work. Now, they put the whole disabled people within the continent at 80 million. 80 million people. And up to 80% of these people have no source of income. Those that are capable of working, have no source of income, or should I say at the working age, which means they're going to depend on their families. And most people might not necessarily come from families that they can depend on. So what do they end up doing? They end up on our streets. You walk around Lagos, you drive around Accra, you drive around Addis Ababas, and you drive around your Nairobis, your Kigalis. What are you gonna find? You're most likely to come across somebody begging based on their disability. I bet majority of us have seen that child with an adult, man that is blind, begging, at traffic lights or places where, there's huge traffics. It's about time you rose beyond these things. We're more than this. It's 2018. Being disabled should not still have the stigma you used to have, regardless of which part of the country you are. Whether you're in the rural side or you're in the urban side. Again, I'll take Ghana as an example because that's where I come from, that's where I grew up. Even if you have just a wheelchair, let's assume you're able to get yourself a wheelchair. How easy it is to maneuver your way within the country. You will struggle getting, into like our commercial cars called Trotro with a wheelchair. You will more than struggle. Like how close are disabled schools to people? So it's look, we can go on and on about all these problems that exist in our society. But I want to suggest just one solution to this problem. Just one. Because to me, the root cause is the public's perception. Some people might call it culture. But it's how we see disabled people. And if we as people, if we as a community can look beyond somebody's disability, if we as people can go, nah, the fact that you're born with a disability is not a curse. The fact that, you might be blind, the fact that you might, even suffer from polio, something that you're not even born with. The fact that you're deaf. The fact that you have epilepsy, the fact that you're autistic. It doesn't mean you are cursed. It doesn't mean you can't be part of our society. It doesn't mean we are going to, make your family an outcast. What that will do is at least ensure these people survive as babies. It will ensure that the family does not feel the shame of having a disabled child. It will ensure that the family does not feel the stigma of having a disabled child. But most importantly, what it will do is will ensure these families can, give these kids love. These families can now try and find ways to make these kids work. Or make sure they be able to, contribute meaningfully to society. And there's numerous people with disabilities that have been able to survive in societies, given the right conditions. We got Nigerian, Adepitan. He suffered from polio, didn't stop him. Basketball player, now a TV presenter, working for the BBC and Channel 4 in the UK. We got Claudia Gordon, deaf. Yes, she struggled in Jamaica because the resources were not there, because she was not given the conditions to prosper. But when she moved to the US, she's able to go to law school, become the first deaf woman to actually complete law school, work under the Obama administration. It's possible, people. But it starts with us, changing our mindset, with us actually being just letting people be. and not stigmatizing them, and not, chastising, and not making them feel like they're inferior simply because, they are born with a disability, or simply because they have a disabled family member or a disabled child. And the moment you're able to do that, that is when we can actually start challenging our politicians to put better laws in place, to actually create an environment that is conducive for the unfortunate people, or should I say for the disabled people, to actually survive in our communities. So let's work on ourselves first. Let's work on our mindset. Then we can, challenge the status quo and get our politicians to put the right laws in place. Anyway, let me know in the comment section what you think, and your experiences with disabled people or disability within the context of Africa, or within your own actual circles, and what you think can be done to ensure the integration, and to stop some of these injustice that is suffered by the people that are disabled within our communities. Thanks.